Prison guards of Reddit, what is the most extreme thing you ever saw happen in your prison? A family member and I used to work at the same prison and the prisoners knew we were related. My family member got into a minor car accident and had a few weeks off work to recover. Word got out about it to all the prisoners and I constantly got asked how I was coping because they all heard it was super serious. It wasn't. While one was asking me what happened when we had a lockdown code so everyone had to go back to their blocks. Came to find out in the incident report that a fight had started because two prisoners heard two different stories on what happened to my family member, couldn't agree, started a punch up, and got the whole block of about 80 guys brawling. Whole place got locked down for like 10 hours. All because my family member can't drive. I was a supervisor at a adolescent male sex offender secure level 5 facility. Beforehand, I was a regular co there for 3 years and never saw anything more than a few fights and a few masturbators. My first Friday evening on the job, and we had the largest riot the facility has ever had, the first it ever had. 2 kids from the same unit attacked and pinned down a staff holding sharp pencil to his neck. They then whistled to the other units which triggered 2 other residents to do the same on their unit. We had 2 staff per unit, a floater, and a supervisor for 40 kids. I ended up having to call the police so come assist. They came in with guns blazing, and the kids dropped the attempt damn quick. Currently a co. I work in one of the reformed mental health facilities for my state. Basically we are a prison with a strong focus on mental health rehabilitation. We deal with some of the state's finest, worst cases. I've seen a man with a literal hole in his body from his chest to below his belly button. He put it there. It started after he ripped his intestines out and bit through them. He then proceeded to enlarge the hole slowly over time. Longest 4-point restraint inmate in the state's history. Also seen a guy shove a 4-foot headphone extension cord through his D***K and into his bladder not once, not twice, but 5 times now. He's also gouged his eye out. I've got stories like these for days. Working in the ER we had a prisoner come in unconscious and covered in blood. We got him cleaned up and counted at least 12 stab wounds to his head and face. They were shallow, but the force caused the wounds to look like gashes so stitches or staples were out of the question. He had even more wounds on his arms from trying to cover his head during the attack. We couldn't save one of his ears, and he was still unconscious when I clocked out. Update: according to an employee that still works at that hospital, the prisoner was transferred to a trauma center the following morning. He had multiple fractures and spinal damage. Apparently he was a snitch and got jumped by other prisoners. My dad was in prison and the craziest day he experienced was sometime around the end of his first weekend. He had been keeping his head down, but one of the other inmates told him to meet him outside by the corner of one of the building during their free time outside. He was hesitant because he didn't want to get into trouble right out of the gate. He looked toward the corner of the building and saw a small group of guys huddled, and he got even more concerned. Just as he was going to walk away they noticed him and called him over. He accepted. These guys were passing around a cantaloupe and sharing it. Each guy had a spoon and they'd take a bite and pass it on. I have a friend who's a prison guard. Just the other day he was telling me about an inmate who called over one of the guards and held out his hand holding something in his fist. Not really thinking anything, the guard holds his hand out and the inmate drops what he was holding into the guard's hand. As he starts walking away the guard looks in his hand and sees the inmate's testicles. I didn't ask if they were still in the sack, but I'll find out next time I see my mate. Then a few weeks later the same inmate cut off his penis. With all the serious ones, I thought I would give a funny one too. Worked in a youth correctional facility. The units were Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, etc. On Charlie dorm there were 3 openly homosexual youth who were way over the top when it came to stereotypical gay behavior, talked in lisps, used red Kool-Aid powder to make lipstick, tied their sweater arms together to make a purse, etc. Well, one day they are walking down the hall together, see me in my office, and said, "Hey Acteach, check this out." Then the three of them dropped and did the Charlie's Angels pose. I laughed my ass off. Honestly, there's no such thing as a bad time to do the Charlie's Angels pose. Let's see. Back when I worked in the industry, guy disemboweled himself essentially to get a demon out. He lived, not sure about demon. His intestines were out of his body, and he was ghost white from blood loss. Guy was putting nails or screws up his urethra. Chick hid a can lid in her special kangaroo pouch and pulled it out to try to cut herself after an adverse hearing result. Special kangaroo pouch, excuse me, what the fuck? Not me, my past coworker's husband. He has PTSD from this and other events, and as a warning, let's just say NSFL. He worked at a local woman's prison. One time he was called to a cell because he was told that there was a woman who miscarried. She fully gave birth to a live child and then attempted to shove it down the toilet. Not mine, but my dad's first day he was there, a riot occurred because some dumbass prisoner thought it would be funny if he stole a book from a prisoner and blamed it on someone else. Long story short, the guy who was blamed had all 4 of his limbs broken and his face beaten to a pulp. Apparently they already had beef between them. I used to work in a minimum security prison. One inmate decided that the medical staff weren't treating his diarrhea properly or quickly enough, so his solution was to shove an apple up his ass. Surprisingly, this didn't work out the way he thought. Via my father, one prisoner was trying to kill his cellmate, but didn't have a weapon. So he took a pen, stuck it in the guy's ear, and stomped on it. It came out of the victim's mouth. I used to be a corrections officer. I found an inmate beaten up, and his neck snapped in the gym one night, gave him CPR until medics arrived, but he was too far gone. An inmate with mental issues and HIV sliced his stomach open with a razor. Line was from below sternum to just below belly button. Survived, but man, it was ugly. I was just an inmate, but when I was locked up in the Bronx, I remember people making shivs out of the toothbrushes we were given. Also, one guy screamed bloody murder to prove that the coast didn't give a fuck about what went on in the holding cells. No one checked on us. Also, the coast would purposely throw rival gang members into the same cell. I'll never forget some of their screams as they got hauled off into enemy territory. Edit. Also saw people get beat by the coast and pepper sprayed in the face while incapacitated. Then left in handcuffs for hours, so they couldn't wash the spray off. Their screams were pretty bad too. One dude had a seizure, and it took about an hour for a medical response. Not me, but my mom is a prison nurse. She once had a dude swallow a balloon filled with drugs, and it popped or leaked in his stomach and he overdosed. A guy trying to smuggle in a carton of cigarettes under a fat roll. That is not a typo. A carton, not a pack. My dad was a prison guard in Tennessee. Every Thursday was pork chop day in Maximum. When you have nothing, you live for the little things. One day they ran out of pork chops and a dumb guard tells the back of the line, "They're all out of pork chops, the rest of you fuckers are getting bologna." Minor riot with a 6-hour lockdown, 2 broken bones, and like 10 people had to be treated by the nurse. From my co-brother, some guy bashed his head open and wouldn't cuff up to have the nurses help. He was being absolutely combative and going crazy. He covered himself and the cell he was in with blood and drew a picture of Jesus with the blood. He told my brother he was going to die and to tell his family he loved him before passing out and apparently actually almost dying. He said it messed him up for a good while. Not a guard, but a prison nurse. Had to respond to a cell fight where one man bit off another man's nose. The most extreme one I heard though was from a doctor I worked with. My first patient ate her own eyeball. I did a bit in Florida about 4 years ago. While I was inside, they let my cell block come into the common area to watch the iHeart Radio Awards. Never would have watched it on my own, but it was nice to have the distraction. This was the summer that Ariana Grande had that one less problem song, and she performed it right before JLo came to the stage. Now, I'm in with mostly Puerto Rican inmates, so JLo being on was a big goddamn deal. Some dude just loses his shit during the Ariana Grande song. Some of the dudes said he was into little girls or something, and throws a very lightweight plastic chair at the TV. Didn't think it would do much damage, but it busted the LCD. Hell. Broke. Loose. Dudes weren't gonna get a chance to see JLo's ass, and they wanted blood for it. I ran my gringo behind back to my cell, and a 60-man brawl ensued. All of this to say, in the midst of the insanity, one guy bit another guy's thumb off. And swallowed it.